they can help us." Mike nodded, and Liz laughed nervously. Carefully they walked across the meadows towards the farm. Liz had injured her leg in the car crash, and Mike supported her. Halfway through the meadow, Simone suddenly stopped and looked up. "What's wrong?" Mike asked. "Look up there." Simone pointed at the nebula. A small bright flash, followed by a few more flashes, broke through the nebula. They were surprised to see how many these flashes turned into white spheres of light that shot at a high speed through the air. Most of the spheres disappeared out of sight, except for one that became bigger and brighter. Before they could react, it hit the earth with an overwhelming bang in front of the farm, which was immediately swept away by the pressure wave. Mike, Liz and Simone were swept into the air and were dashed to the ground a few yards away, where they lied without moving. The shock wave shook the ground, and a huge cloud of dust rose into the air and let the light from the stars and the nebula disappear. Debris and mud fell beside Simone, who held her hands over her head for protection. After a few minutes, the fallout stopped. Simone slowly got up, and her whole body felt bruised. She had a high-pitching sound in her ears, and everything seems to rotate in front of her eyes. The visibility was very poor by all the dust floating in the air. Slowly she came to her senses and tried to focus. "Hello? Liz? Mike? Hello?" Her head buzzed and her voice sounded huskily because of all the dust she had inhaled. She moved a few steps back and grabbed her head when she felt a pain rising up through her body. Her tensed muscles caused an excruciating pain and felt if she just had had an intense workout. Suddenly she heard Liz crying and calling out. Simone pulled herself together and regained her strength by pure willpower. Carefully she stumbled towards the sound. "Liz? Liz?" But there was no answer. With lots of effort she walked towards the crying sound. Suddenly she saw two silhouettes on the ground a few feet ahead. She threw herself on her knees when she saw in horror what had happened. Liz sat on her knees with both her hands pressing on a large wound at Mike's chest. Her clothes were covered in blood and her mascara was smudged onto her cheeks, and she was crying. "He doesn't respond," she tearfully said. Mike's skin was white and his eyes were wide open. Simone looked at Liz sadly and took her gently by the shoulders. "He's dead, Liz," she whispered. Liz looked desperately, let go of Mike, and grabbed Simone while crying. "Why is this happening?" she said, sobbing. Simone rubbed her back and gently helped her up her feet. "Can you walk by yourself?" Liz nodded. "I will try, but my leg hurts even more." "We have to go and look for help. Let's find the car and then we can follow the road from there." Slowly they walked away from Mike, who soon disappeared into a thick fog. "I hope that we are walking in the right direction, but I can't see shit in this fog." Liz was too dizzy and numbed to answer, and walked on autopilot behind Simone. Suddenly they felt a strong cold wind blowing along their legs. They watched how the dust in the air and on the ground was carried away. The sky cleared slowly, and terrified they noticed that they stood near a huge crater. The dust was sucked in and disappeared into the crater in a rapid pace. Liz trembled for fear and began to cry softly. "I want to go home, Simone." But Simone didn't hear her and stood nailed to the ground because she realized how lucky they were to have survived a meteor impact like this. She also realized that this should not have happened. Normally, cities are vanished by an impact like this. Liz suddenly pulled Simone's arm frantically when she saw how her necklace reacted again and pointed towards the crater. She wanted to take her necklace off when suddenly the flaps of her dress fluttered towards the crater and the sudden sucking wind made ominous sounds. At the same moment, Liz and Simone looked at each other when they both realized what was happening. "Run!" screamed Simone. They turned away from the crater and started to run. Because of the adrenaline, the pain was gone, and they ran as fast as they could. The suction became much stronger, and pieces of soil and grass flew past them and vanished into the hole. "There!" Simone screamed. She pointed at Nick's car in the ditch. They ran as fast as they could towards the ditch, but it felt like they were running against an increasingly steeper slope. Liz's necklace was pulled backwards in the direction of the crater and almost choked her, but then it broke and shot away. Their dresses began to tear because the force of the wind was so strong. Exhausted and with their face down and protecting it with their arms against the flying debris, they walked on. Simone was heading in front and Liz struggled to keep up behind her. They almost reached the ditch when Simone saw how, in just a few seconds, the car began to shake and loosened. Suddenly it began to roll towards them in the direction of the crater. "Watch out, Liz!" She yelled in fear and ducked when the car flew over her head. But it was too late for Liz. The car slammed her right arm, which made her to lose her balance. She screamed when she lost her connection to the ground and was dragged towards the crater, where she disappeared into the black hole. "No!" cried Simone. Simone tried to reach the ditch, crawling on both hands and feet, when the suction power became even stronger, which made her lose connection to the ground. Helplessly and screaming for fear, she was dragged towards the crater and disappeared, just as Liz, into the deep, mysterious depth.